Hexagram number 34. The power of the great. Great power lies in one's certain knowledge of the power of good. The power of the great perseverance furthers. Here, as in many other Ching hexagrams, there are two meanings to consider. The first meaning is the true power that arises when we perceive the correct way to go. The gates to success begin to open. As it is put in the second line, the second meaning has to do with stolen, assumed, or intercepted power, in which the ego seizes command by taking advantage of favorable situations. Power is defined by the two trigrams as clarity, Ching, which rises up abruptly as strength, Ching, a clear perception of a situation gives us the strength to deal with it. Insight opens the door. Perceiving the opening, we suddenly feel free to move ahead. Ching indicates the cosmic idea. Ching indicates that movement is precipitated. However, Ching also means perseverance. Whenever we perceive the correct way to go, we must not become obsessively lost in the forward thrust so that we lose our inner composure. For our ego awaits for just such an opportunity. The ego is like a wild card football player who, obsessed with the ambition to attain to some sort of glory, is on nobody's side, waiting on the sideline. It eagerly watches for an opportunity to jump out to intercept the ball. Sees the power of insight. Needless to say, it often runs the wrong way. The ego can interject itself only if we become so absorbed in what we're doing that we lose touch with our inner being. Our true self is always objective, reticent, and reserved. Awareness of this danger protects us from losing our inner balance and from forgetting that right and justice must be accompanied by moderate thoughts and actions. The idea of power combined with perseverance indicates a certain reticence. In possessing power, the consciousness that right is on our side, we must be cautious to use it. and when we must certainly not glory in it. True greatness is the ability to possess power and not use it. We often fail to realize that our inner thoughts communicate to others without any intention or effort on our part. We feel their inner attitudes as well. These are nonverbal perceptions that we are trained in childhood to distrust. All of us can remember when, as a child, we reacted negatively to someone only to be dissuaded from or cajoled into denying and even suppressing our feelings. We harbored them nonetheless, for they were to us an undeniable inner truth. The inner sense of truth, however suppressed, however denied, and however contrary to what we are supposed to think, is capable of emerging with great power under the right conditions. If we relate to it the way we are naturally meant to relate, inner truth can correct all wrongs. On having either a positive or negative perception about something or someone, we should lift the perception to conscientiousness at once. Doing so enables us to understand fully the inner truth of the situation before our tainted habitual responses take hold. If we fail to do this and leave the emerging perception in its semi-conscious state, the old reactive patterns will remain in effect simply through inertia. On lifting the new perception to full consciousness, we preserve its integrity and empower it so that it automatically corrects the situation in question. We need to do nothing at all. The lines of the hexagram reveal many of the dangers inherent when the power of insight has been intercepted by the ego. As the first line states, power in the lowest place is inclined to affect advance by force. On first perceiving an evil or ego interjects itself with the thought, we must do something about this. This is an old reactive pattern based on doubt. On perceiving an opportunity to advance, at the moment the door opens, the ego interjects with exuberant enthusiasm. Now we can do something, or worse. The problem is over. We can relax and forget everything. On perceiving that we have attained an influence, it says self-importantly, "See me? I possess the answers. If you don't agree, I'll make things happen my way." or else we allow ourselves to indulge in the egotistical spiritual irritation of being in the right. On intercepting the ball, the ego always interferes with the natural direction of power. It either goes too far or runs the wrong way. Pushing obstinately, it becomes entangled. Once entangled, it adopts a belligerent pose. Only the fourth line of the hexagram describes the correct use of power. A man goes on quietly and perseveringly working at the removal of resistances, and such a man's power does not show externally, yet it can move heavy loads. We receive this hexagram mostly when, if only in our thoughts, we have abused power. Power includes using leverage, as when we push people along, or when we keep pressure on them, or make them feel uncomfortable, or when we seek to manipulate them through flattery and lure their comfort. Power abuse occurs when we hold grudges or dismiss others as hopeless. Saying things in anger has an indirect effect on others that is like an atom blast, the fallout of which may persist for years. Persevering in the use of power means that we wait for the right time to speak or act. When we are free of the pressures and enthusiasms of the ego, and when we are all in full possession of the inner truth of the matter, everything we say or do proceeds from a sense of what is fair, just, and essential. And we rely on the power of good in others, trusting that their sense of truth, however suppressed, will emerge to support what is right. What we must be willing to trust that if we are sincere in trying to find the correct way, the power of good will come to our aid. It is important when we are given the opportunity to express our point of view that we go no further than the moment allows. To do so means that our ever-prowling ego has once more intercepted the truth and mixed it with its own purposes into half-truths. Then everything we say or do carries the taint that accompanies half-truths. As incorrect use of power creates a bad reaction, this reaction can be undone if we return to sincerity and humility. We withdraw, not in anger or discouragement, but into neutrality, being able to go on resolutely just when we are tempted to give up, the struggle as hopeless creates great power. Firmness at the point of duty, firmness at the post of duty overcomes the evil force. Changing line number 1. Power in the toes. Continuing brings misfortune. Power in the toes means that we try to win through persuasion, contending, or force. It also refers to inner pacts we have made that people must conform to what we want before we will have anything to do with them. It is egotistical to maintain any form of supervisory attitude to correct people. We must totally disengage. We will know when they have corrected themselves. Power in the toes also means that we advance presumptuously. For example, we press ourselves on others who are not open to us, or we fail to retreat and disengage in time. When others' receptivity peaks and begins to decline, we assume that even though we have been a little careless in such things, we will be protected. It is necessary, however, to be responsible in order to set the correct example and to consider seriously the risks to which we expose ourselves. To presume on fate is to court disaster. It is like buying an unknown stock on the stock market on the presumption that fate will make it pay off. Changing line number 2. Perseverance brings good fortune. The line counsels perseverance because once resistance gives way, we tend to regress into the luxury of exuberant self-confidence. During such times, we are self-assertive, expecting people to credit our inner acceptance that the situation has improved. Now we feel liberated enough to abandon our limits and tell others what is wrong with them. To avoid such an abuse of power, we should maintain a modest attitude. Changing line number 3. The inferior man walks through power. The superior man does not act thus. To continue is dangerous. A goat butts against a hedge, and even in horns tangled. Thus the line refers to times when we think or act as an adversary to others. We may never withdraw from the battle. We may never withdraw from the hostile attitude to consider taking actions that would put them at a disadvantage. It is a mistake to think that through resistance and hardened attitudes we can force the great man to others to emerge. Setting up an obstacle course only hardens what is inferior in them. Changing line number 4. Perseverance brings good fortune. Remorse disappears. The hedge opens. There is no more entanglement. Power depends upon the axle of a big cart. We made an external move that creates resistance in others. Example: we have priced our goods a little higher than we think will be accepted, even though our costs have required us to do so. When no one buys, we think is due to the price. This is not so, however. The buyers resist only because they intuitively perceive our doubts. Once we become firm and we have done what necessary and correct in these resistances, give away. The axle symbolizes a persevering attitude. The persevering, we overcome adversity. Through persevering, we overcome adversity and danger. It is possible. It is also important that we do not destroy our inner power by indulging doubt about ourselves when we have made mistakes. We should acknowledge our mistakes, correct them, and get on with life. Changing line number 5. Loses the great with ease. No remorse. It is important to make pacts with ourselves. When we decide a simple person is not to be trusted, we erect an obstacle course when we decide that a particular person is not to be trusted. We erect an obstacle course over which he must climb to reach us. To persist in this is to punish him excessively. This line measures us that we may safely give up defenses and pacts without coming to harm. Changing line number 6. A goat butts against a hedge. It cannot go backward. It cannot go forward. Nothing serves to further. If one notes the difficulty, this brings good fortune. The goat is entangled through using too much power. Obstinately pressing for results creates more rather than less resistance. We may have taken action that would put someone either at a disadvantage or at an unfair advantage. We may expect or demand someone do a thing because he ought to, even though it would be wrong for him to heal to our ego demand. Or we may have become too interested in what is going on. All such actions and attitudes create obstacles and resistances. We correct such errors by withdrawing from the obstinate use of power. After using power wrongly, we should be prepared to persevere while an eclipse in our relationship runs its course. Meanwhile, we should not stand in the crossroads wondering if what we do next not wondering what to do next. We should go on keeping ourselves perseveringly detached. Once we have corrected our attitude, we should leave the matter behind as if nothing had occurred. This ends hexagram number 34.